What is going on, everyone? My name is Everett Delorme, and today we are going to preview the 2024 Volleyball Nations League for Team Canada, for the women of Team Canada. Volleyball Nations League is getting kicked off today, May 14th. I already watched a couple of matches, and Team Canada will kick things off tonight against Brazil in what is to be their most important Volleyball Nations League to date. They've only participated now in 3 VNLs, and this will be their 4th, but this is hands down their most important of the bunch, as qualification for the 2024 Olympics is on the line. Today we're going to break down a little bit about the VNL, go over a little bit over the Olympic qualification process for Team Canada, look at where they at and where they sit, and then we're going to look at the roster that Canada will be using throughout the VNL and potentially the Olympics as well if they manage to qualify, and then we'll look at the schedule, how Canada will be able to go through week by week. As per usual, just to break it down, the VNL is the top 16 teams in the world competing over 3 weeks of competition. Every week, Canada or every team will be in a pool of 8, but they will only play 4 matches. 4 matches per week, up to a total of 12. At the end of the 3 weeks, the top 8 teams will head off into the playoffs. However, that Olympic qualification deadline is just before that, on June 17th. So that will be the big date to determine whether or not Team Canada will be going to the Olympics or not. Now, breaking that down a little bit further, here is what the qualification process looks like at the moment. 6 teams qualified last fall at the Olympic qualification tournament. Dominican Republic and Serbia out of Pool A. That was Canada's pool. We'll talk about that in a second. Turkey and Brazil out of Pool B. No real surprises there. And then USA in Poland out of Pool C, which is not a huge upset, but most would have expected Italy there. Now, if we go back to Pool A, where Canada was, both Canada and the Dominican Republic managed to upset China, who went all the way to the VNL finals earlier in the year last year. But it was a 5-set thriller that the Dominican Republic got over Canada early on in the Olympic qualification that really clinched their win. Had Canada won that 5-setter against the Dominican Republic, they would have qualified for the Olympics, which would have been amazing to see both the women and the men qualifying through the Olympic qualifying tournament. Both unexpected, but it wasn't to be. So instead, the next step of the qualification will go up to the world ranking points. Now, it says here that it's the next 5 highest ranking teams. Of course, France being the host have already qualified, but it's not actually the next 5 highest ranking teams, because one of those spots has to go to the highest ranking African representative, which at the moment is Kenya in 21st. So in reality, there's only 4 spots. And when we look at the standings right now in the Olympic race, they are so tight. We're seeing there, these are the non-qualified teams there. So Italy and China, they're pretty much guaranteed to go. They have such a far ahead in advance that even if they have a terrible VNL, they're more than likely still going to be able to qualify. Even though Italy did lose their first match today against Poland. And then next up down there, you have Japan, who is in a solid position, and the Netherlands. The Netherlands is currently holding that last world ranking spot in the 10th place in the world. And Canada is only sitting about 23 points behind them in the rankings. If you go behind Canada, we see Germany and Thailand. Germany is 60 points behind. Thailand is 66 points behind. Bulgaria, Korea, doesn't even matter. I shouldn't even have mentioned the K word. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'll put money in the swear jar. So that is the way it's looking right now. 23 points, however, is really not that much when you're looking at every win in the VNL and every win in international volleyball is a plus or a minus. If you win, you're going to be gaining points. And that's determined on the ranking of the opponent you're playing. If they're a higher ranked team than you and you win 3-0, you're going to get a lot of points. But if you only win 3-2, you're going to get less, right? So it dictates the score you get and the level of the opponent that you're playing. And if you want to see this, you can actually go to the VNL website, and when you look at the schedule, it'll actually show you the breakdown of points match per match, and if they win 3-0, 3-1, 3-2, what the divide will be, which is actually pretty cool. So actually kudos to Volleyball World on that. That's actually a pretty good that's actually a pretty good thing that they're doing there. So yeah, that's it. This is what the Olympic qualification process looks like. So Canada is very, very much alive, and they are very, very much in the race. But we cannot stress how important this VNL is. Last year, Canada went 6-6 in the VNL, and that's probably not going to be good enough. They're probably going to have to be doing better than that because they're still going to have to make up that gap to the Netherlands. And the Netherlands are already off to a good start. They got a good 3-0 win over Bulgaria this morning. So that is definitely going to make things a little bit difficult. So now looking forward to what we can expect from Shannon Windsor's roster. This is going to be this is the official week 1 roster, but we're expecting this to go all the way through. And I mean, at this point, there shouldn't be really any surprises after what we've known from this team. Alexa Gray, Hillary Howe. It's actually now Hillary Johnson, but like I know her as a Howe, and it's tough. So I'm probably going to refer her to Hillary Johnson for the next little bit, and she'll probably ask me to stop. But we'll see how that goes. Hillary Howe, Andrew Mitrovic, and Vicky Savard. Normally we would have Caroline Livingston, but she has been omitted from the roster. She's one of 2 big omissions from this roster that we're gonna discuss. Livingston has been the go-to serve and passing sub in the back row. So interesting that they haven't gone with her instead. In down the middle, Emily Maglia will be the rock. I think she's quite possibly one of the most underrated middles in the world. She continues to put up big numbers in some of the best leagues, and she's highly sought after, and love to see her be the cornerstone for the middles on this team, both blocking and offensively. Opposite to her, we're likely going to see Jasmine White. She wrapped up another pretty good season with Schwerin in the Bundesliga. And then behind them we'll have Lane Van Buskirk as well, who played for the Vegas Thrill this year. Right? Vegas? Yeah, Lane Van Buskirk played for the Vegas Hill, and Alicia Ogums to round out the squad. So we've got 4 very good veteran middles who know how to play the game. And if there's one area where we may see a little bit of injection to the roster, it may be in the middle, as Jen Cross is still rehabbing, and she's one of those athletes that maybe just injecting her to the roster. She's technically still the captain of this team, or was when she was the player. So she may be someone that can come in and bring a veteran presence and bring up the vibes. Other than that, I wouldn't expect to see anyone else being brought in. This is a team who is on a mission and on a goal. There's one goal for this VNL, and that's qualify for the Olympics. That's it, and that's all. I'm not going to go out and say that not qualifying is going to be a failure, because I think that when you look at the grand scheme of things, how far this our women's team has come is such an accomplishment in itself. But I absolutely know that if I told that to, coaches Shannon Windsor and Matt Kruger and the rest of the team, they wouldn't agree with me at all. So, yeah. Well, when we look at through the rest of this roster, on the opposite, no surprise there, Kira Van Rijk. She led the Turkish league in scoring this year, one of their top scorers, and that is no small feat. And she's signed to go to Vakifbank, one of the biggest clubs in the world next year, replacing the American Jordan Thompson, who didn't have a great season, so we'll see if Kira can do a little bit better. But she will be a cornerstone of this team. Shaina Joseph, as always, going to be backing her up. She played for Orlando this year in the PVF. So 2 PVF players from Team Canada this year. In the setting position, Bree King will continue to hold it down. She continued to have a very, very good season in Brazil, playing for the legendary Bernardinho, playing for Sessi/Flamenco, a legendary club in the Brazilian Superliga. I'm pretty sure for both volleyball and soccer. But there is no doubt that this is Bree King's team, and that she is the cornerstone of this team. And in her place, we're used to seeing Kim Robitaille. This is maybe the one omission that maybe is a little bit of a head scratcher to me. In past years, I don't know for how many long, Kim Obitaille has been the backup setter to Bree King, and now she hasn't played much in years, as Shannon Windsor has really gone with her starters, so there should be no question about who's on the court, barring injury, right? But generally, Kim Robitaille has been one of the most experienced setters, having played pro all around, having won championships, having played in Champions League, and this year omitted off the roster. So that was one of the few things on this team that kind of made me scratch my head. And instead, in place, we're going to see Courtney Baker from the East Coast come in. So Baker going to be getting some of her first VNL looks. I mean, just in a couple hours. And then to round out the squad, you're going to have Casey Yost and Julia Merman, both out of youth sports, come into play as the libero. Casey Yost won a national championship with the UBC Thunderbirds, and of course, Julia Merman was at the University of Toronto. So despite their young age, both of them have already played. Like Julia Merman's played at World Championships. Casey Yost was a massive part of the team last year throughout VNL and the Norseca Championships and then the Olympic qualifying tournament. So they are the youngest parts of that team. Everyone else is quite veterans at this point, but even them have a lot of experience from different VNLs, World Championships, and Olympic qualification tournaments. And as I mentioned, this roster runs in one way, and that is opening up things up for Alexa Gray and Kira Van Rijk. There's not the women's game right now is heavily dependent on a very, very good right side and having an explosive right side who can handle a lot of volume. It's very reminiscent of the men's game in the early 2010s and in the 2000s. Just jack high balls up to the right side and let them swing away. And we see that from the top teams. Turkey has Vargas, Italy has Egonu and Antropova. Serbia obviously has Boskovic. Now Canada has Kira Van Rijk, and while she may not be considered within the elite, in the top elite opposites in the world, she is most definitely considered in that second group and is known to put up a lot of points. So it's all going to be riding on her, and then the opposite side, Alexa Gray. Now Alexa Gray has been a player who has scored in bunches for Team Canada, and we have relied on her time and time again. In the pro game, when we see her with clubs, she tends to maybe get pushed onto a reserve role just maybe because her serve receive isn't as strong. But, we've seen her come through with like that big performance last year in the finals, in the Scudetto finals for Canigliano. Just monstrous points, something like 28 points off the bench and let them win the championships. And this past year playing for Gazashabasha in the Turkish league and coming up clutch at a number of moments, even though she did struggle a little bit. With the Canadian system, that's not as important, right? Bree King is used to having to run around a little bit. She is such an athletic setter, and she is able to hustle to make sure where Canada's serve receive necessarily isn't as good, she's able to rectify it and be able to run that offense. And Canada, out of the system, has no problem running a bit of a high ball offense, but it's been a lot of fun to watch over the years. Just to see how they've developed an offense to be able to get Alexa and Kira a lot of different looks, how they're using Maglio on the 31 to open up things for Alexa in the pipe. Canada's one of the few teams that uses that pipe option, especially when Alexa's back there, so expect to see that. And I think the other part of the equation for all of this, and one of the big question marks over the past few years, is who's going to play that P2 role? Who's going to play the second left side role? And we've seen it basically bounce back and forth between Hillary Howe/Johnson, going to have to get used to it, and Andrea Mitrovic on the left side. Now, both of them played in the Plus Liga this year, whereas Hillary played a big role, scoring over 300 points for Radomka, a kind of middle of the pack team in the Plus Liga, while as Andrea played more of a reserve coming off the bench role for one of the top teams. I mean, her team Voj made it all the way to the finals in the Torn Liga and has qualified for the Champions League next year. So I think one of the reasons that we're seeing no Caroline Livingston on this team is the fact that we've got Hillary Howe and Andrea Mitrovic. I think they've both really leveled up this year. I think they've really taken that step forward, and they started settling into that role. So knowing the fact that now we have three legitimate outside options is great. Now, we're never going to see Alexa come off the floor at no point, right? Maybe when we're playing that K team and we're up like 2-0 and a lot. But otherwise, Alexa Gray, Kira Van Rijk, or Alexa Gray will not come off the floor. Kira and Bree King might come off the floor in a double sub. I can definitely see that happening. And you know what? Courtney Baker's is really physical, so I wouldn't be surprised to see her come in as a blocking sub as well. But otherwise, this team is going to ride the starting lineup, and that's going to be the way they make it to the Olympics potentially. All right, next up, we are going to break down the schedule a little bit. So, as I mentioned, the VNL has 3 weeks of competition, and it's week on, week off, week on, week off. And the weeks off is when the men's competitions goes down. So we'll do this all again next week for the men's team. But breaking it down here week by week, week 1, we've got Canada playing in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, one of the homes of the sport. So that is fantastic for Team Canada. Game 1 starting in just under 3 hours against the home team Brazil. That is bound to be a banger, but I think it's going to be a good time to catch them. Brazil is not what it used to be. Canada actually beat Brazil at the VNL last year, so that gave them a lot of confidence. So that one could be another good one. They are off tomorrow on Wednesday before they play another massive matchup against the Dominican Republic on Thursday. Once again, remember, the Dominican beat them last year at the Olympic qualifying tournament, also in the semifinals of the NORCECA Championships at home in Quebec City at Avad last year. So that one is the Dominican-Canada, I say rivalry, but is definitely like a friendly rivalry. There's no bad blood between the Canadian team and Dominican team that I've seen, and I got to hang out with them a little bit during the award ceremony for NORCECA's last year. But there is definitely an on-court rivalry. I think there's a massive amount of respect from both teams as they've battled quite a bit, especially since the pandemic as Canada's been better. But this is a must-win for Team Canada, and I really hope that maybe Cristobal sends the message to his team and is like, hey, it's important for us to have three NORCECA teams at the Olympics. Maybe we just take the foot off the pedal a little bit. Not too much. We still want that respect there. Come on, but hey, from one NORCECA team to another, maybe we play the bench a little bit. That's all I'm saying against us. Okay. But that being said, the Dominican is a very exciting team. We saw how they improved last year from 12th at the VNL all the way to winning the NORCECA Championships, upsetting the United States in Quebec City, and then qualifying, upsetting Serbia and China. They didn't upset Serbia, but just China at the Olympic qualifying tournament to get that Olympic spot. That was massive for them. Super, super happy for them. The very next day on Friday, Team Canada will be taking on China, and Canada did defeat China at the Olympic qualifying tournament, so that will be a big one. No Zhu Ting yet for China, but they do still have Li Yingying, and Alexa Gray are probably going to go off on that one. Two of the best left sides in the world, and then things will finish up against Thailand on Saturday on the 18th. And now, remember, Thailand went 2-10 last year, and one of their 2 losses, or their 2 wins, was against Canada. Had Canada won that game, which they should have, they would have qualified for the playoffs, right? And you know what? Considering those matches, how much closer would they have been to the Netherlands right now? I mean, that's neither here nor there. There is no gimme games this year. There's no we let that one off the hook. Not only every match, but every set matters for Team Canada this year. And that's the mentality that they need when going into it. Also, big shout out to Alex Shim from Varsity Ball. Doing some great work covering youth sports and other things this year. So we're going to be working a little bit together, just creating some content and some stuff throughout the summer. So big shout out to Varsity V-Ball and Alex Shim for making this asset. And speaking of, big shout out to Glennial and G Volley for making this asset. Love to see some different guys getting into the volleyball media game here in Canada. But this is looking forward to week number 2. Oh, sorry, I did forget. Oh no, I did mention that it was in Rio. Week number 2 will be in Arlington, USA, the home of last year's 2023 VNL finals, and this one is going to be another tough one. USA is one of the few elite teams that Canada still hasn't beat yet. So that one is always going to be a tough one. Germany, who is a very, very solid and tough team. They will be taking. They got 8th last year at the VNL, so this is a team who can do some damage and has some good players. They are missing. They did recently have a coach's change and missing a few big names, but they are deadly. Serbia here is a massive opportunity because Serbia is rocking with a very, very B team, but they're ranked 4th in the world. So because of their high ranking, they're a really good team to farm points off, right? If Canada can manage to get a 3-0 win, then that's great, right? That would be so many points for Team Canada. And the best is that the Netherlands don't play them until a few matches later in week number 3. Would have been better if we played them in week 1. Fully agree. But hey, we'll take what we can get and farm some points off of Serbia. And then finally, we can send a CCAA team. It wouldn't matter for this last team. They're like 40th in the world, haven't won a game at the VNL in like 3 years, and yet somehow get to stay and even host weeks sometimes. So we're not even going to talk about that team. Before Canada, and Canada actually has a really beneficial schedule. 2 tournaments in the Western Hemisphere back to back. That's unheard of, right? That never happens. Getting to play in Rio and then in Arlington, it just means that there's so much less back and forth on the body, and there's way less jet lag. Sure, there's a lot of travel going to Rio, and right now they do have, I think it's the Zika virus, and we've been seeing some posts about how the players have been having to stay inside, and but still getting to stay in the Western Hemisphere and staying more or less like within 2 to 3 hours of your home time zone, which is Vancouver, is absolutely massive. And my shades, I'm getting kind of, let's see if I can save myself from the sun here. Just getting roasted. My blinds broke this week or last week, I think, and I haven't been able to fix them up yet. Anyways, so yeah, that is week number 2 in Arlington. And then, of course, in week number 3, Canada will be heading to Fukuoka, Japan, to round things out, and they will get to play against Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, and France. Now, Italy is going to be interesting to see what type of team they're going to be bringing at that point. At that point, I'm assuming it's going to be the team. I think it's going to be a Gono. I think it's going to be Oro. It'll be a Pietrini. Like, it will be their full team. So that is going to be a difficult one. In week number 2, there is going to be Japan, and it's not often for some reason that both on the men's side and the women's side we don't really play Japan often. So I think that one's going to be fun to watch. We don't get that matchup to see that matchup a lot, and then the Netherlands is going to be the big, probably at that point, I'm hoping it's the biggest game of the summer, right? Like at that point, it could be one of the biggest games for qualification. That match in itself could determine who goes to the Olympics and who doesn't. Hoping that Canada, wraps things up nicely and tidily against France in that last one. But I think France is going to be a dangerous team. Hélène Cazot, they don't really have anything to lose. They've got their spot in the Olympics. They've just qualified now for VNL through the Challenger Cup last year. So, yeah, I think France is going to have is going to be a tough team. But I really think that match against the Netherlands on June 14th is going to be massive, massive. I cannot understate how big that one, and you bet your butt I'll be up at 2:30 a.m. to check that one out. All right, I do believe, let me check my notes here. I do believe that is everything that we want to talk about here for the 2024 Volleyball Nations League. Now, the best place to follow it is going to be here on Volleyball Source with us, and tune in to the 9x9 weekly, and we will be giving you weekly updates on the tournament. Of course, always join us over at the Volleyball Source Discord. The links are going to be in the notes, and you can join us there. And there's always conversations going on with people from across Canada and around the world who are just really big volleyball fans. It's one of the best things that we have here on Volleyball Source. And then, of course, follow us over on Instagram at Volleyball Source 2.0. And we thank you very much for tuning in to us. Make sure you tune in to watch Team Canada take on Brazil at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also, finally, all Team Canada matches can be watched on cbcsports.ca for free. And then if you're outside of Canada, on volleyballworld.tv for a subscription. Thank you very much. Love you all. Go Canada. We're going to qualify for the Olympics. I can feel it. And we will see you soon. Peace.